Welcome back to P2T Canine. I'm Chris, and this is another Dog Talk. So, the last few weeks, I've been very busy doing e-collar training for pet owners. I've probably run 25, 26 dogs through and put them on e-collars, and then oriented the owners back to the operation of the e-collar and how to move forward with their pet with this new behavior modification device. With that being said, I started reflecting on the principle of P2T Canine in the first place, practical to tactical. And the reason that I initially went with that name is because of the overlap and the crossover between dog disciplines. Everyone views working dogs and hunting dogs and pet ownership as these wildly different gradations of the canine world, which in fact there is a whole lot more overlap than most people give it credit. So with that being said, today we are going to talk about where working dogs and pet ownership meet. So getting right down to the nub of the matter, again, I've been doing a bunch of e-collar imprintation, e-collar conditioning, whichever title that you subscribe to, and then turning these dogs back over to their owners and teaching them a new way of thinking and some new angles in behavior modification. So one of the first things that I do when I give these dogs back to the owners, and we've got a lot of common threads that run throughout the complaints of what the dogs are doing that the owners don't want them to do. And that's normally one of the places that I start with the owners when we look at the concepts behind the training and what we need to do going forward. And the first concept that I introduce to them is interrupt and redirect. Now, where did that come from and how are we going to use it? This is just terminology again, and if you've watched any of my videos prior in this series, you're going to know that something that is a recurring theme is dogs can't talk, we can't debrief dogs, we don't actually know from their point of view what they think of the behavior modification, what works, what doesn't work, and then also anthropomorphic explanations, people coming up with terminology, definitions, and explaining it to other people in terms that they will understand. So that's the best we can do. And when I talk about interrupt and redirect, whenever your dog is engaging in or about to engage in unwanted, undesirable behavior, we need to interrupt that thought process, break that mental cycle, and then redirect their attention and their energy into an area or a behavior that we do want them to engage in. And that's how we're going to start viewing life moving forward with these pets. So when very common complaint, when owners have a dog that jump up on them, they push the dog down and they tell them no or down. And most of us are familiar with the concept of opposition reflex, which is the Chinese finger trap. Dogs are equal and opposite whenever they're faced with some kind of physical input. When we lean back on the leash and pull on the dog leans into it going the opposite direction, pulling even harder in a more determined fashion. So when we're talking about a dog jumping up on us, when people shove the dog down, this is not really a deterrent to the dog. Now we're in opposition reflex and they're on the teeter-totter. Hey, this is great. I push you and you push me and it's not that bad and it isn't going to cause me to modify or change my behavior. I'm just going to continue engaging in it because obviously I wanted attention and I wanted to engage with this person in the first place. And now any type of engagement will do. And now that we're pushing back and forth on each other and we, the owners, the humans, are becoming more and more agitated, we start pushing down on the dog and our energy level comes up, which theirs is concurrently going to come up. And now we're just on this back and forth of rocking each other one direction and then the other. Another common behavior is for the dog to jump up. And I've got owners who just try to turn away and show them their back. I've corrected a few owners on this in a nice way. They had bad behavior advice from someone else, or this just seemed like it was a good idea for them. As the dog came up and tried to jump on them, they would just turn a shoulder or their back to them. If you've been in The working dog arena, as it pertains to bite work or patrol apprehension work, this is what we would call a prey away, Prey, where you become smaller and you shy away from the aggressive energy of the dog, and you offer a shoulder or your back, or you shrink down or cower in some way in order to bring the energy and the drive of the dog up, because now you are showing weakness by turning away. So I've stopped a few owners from doing that and encouraged them, no, we're going to stand, square up with the dog, look at them, and we're going to interrupt and redirect. At the most, I'm going to just give a hand signal. I'm not blocking the dog, but when I put up my hands, I'm just going to offer a little bit of a visual cue that this road is closed, this is blocked, and I'm going to interrupt. A variety of words can be used, and really this is going to be up to you. In the working dog community, it's going to start with some kind of a verbal marker for correction or unwanted behavior. Phooey. People will often say no out of reflex. Some training organizations use off as your general marker for unwanted behavior, because no is in too common use in everyday vernacular and communication with people. So they want to use a word that's not as common, that won't get thrown around and said in front of their dogs where it would create any kind of confusion. So they're going to use off as their, and that's not the shorthand for off-liegen for the Dutch down, OFF, just off. But with that being said, when you start that interrupt cycle, off or phooey or anything else is going to buy you about a 1 or 2 Mississippi of interrupted thought process. This is the crucial moment. When you have interrupted that thought process and you've got that 1 or 2 Mississippi count, this is when redirect has to happen immediately. If the dog's jumping up on you and you have a good presence, good body language, and you tell them off or phooey or even no, and the dog sits down or stops for a second, and you have this moment, the pregnant pause of what am I going to do next? If you don't immediately follow that up with a redirect into something different, that's when they're going to go right back into that mental cycle that they were in. How does this line up with working dogs? Gunfire, building searches integrated with other assaulters or officers, cover officers on your team. If the dog keys in on someone and they're heading towards one of your cover officers or another one of the assault element members on the team, when you have to phooey or give that interrupt command, they're going to stop and check their behavior, and you're going to get that 1 or 2 Mississippi. That's when we have to do a redirect. If we're going to give a hand signal into another room, if we're going to reiterate the search command, if we need to turn that dog and send them another way, if they get keyed in on one person specifically, if it's a matter of using gunfire, this is where we have to interrupt and redirect. And these two sides of the house, working dogs and pet ownership, they cross right there with the exact same thought process. As you have to interrupt that and then you have to redirect it. So in the pet world right now, the place cot, the dog bed, anything, if your dog starts foundationally on place training, which is a great segue into all of your base behaviors. And this is a takeaway from the canine, the gun dog community in canine, the hunting dog world. So originally, this made its way into SOF MPC and other special operations canine program through the gun dog world. And I go over part of that in the e-collar techniques video. But this is where it started from, was coming from the gun dog and hunting dog world, was the place command and putting your dog on place where they're up on an elevated surface, an apparatus that has 4 edges to it higher than the surrounding ground, so that the dog knows, knows that he's up there. And now when he starts to get down off of this, it's clear that he's broken the boundary. The dog understands that they're coming down off of that. It's not all just one flat surface where they can cheat closer to whatever it is they desire. And it's very clear lines of communication when you're using an e-collar to correct that dog and put them back up onto that place cot or table, or even a big mattress dog bed because as long as it's 3 or 4 inches taller than the surrounding floor, they're going to know that they're on it. So once we have that dog jumping up, if they're a place trained dog, if they jump up, we can say off and then immediately redirect to place. So we're going to put some distance between you or company or your guest or your child or whoever this dog is jumping up on, and we're going to move them to place. And now we have an area where we can move into that impulse control a whole lot more effectively, because now they're on the place table, they're on the cot, they're on their dog bed, and we can hold them there and hold them there with the behavior modification through the electronic training collar, because it's very clear communication that if you are on there, you have to stay on there. And now we move into that impulse control. We've interrupted, we've redirected, and now we can hold them there until their energy level comes back down. If they are standing, we want them to go into that sit to start showing submission to the obedience task. If they're in the sit, we're looking for them to lay down and create that calm energy. Once they're on that calm energy and everything has come back down, then we can give them a release, break, free dog, whatever it is that you're using to allow them to come off of there in a calmer state of mind. If they immediately come off of there and escalate and the energy comes back up, we're just going right back into a new interrupt and redirect cycle, and we're going to put them right back on there and go back into our impulse control and calm them back down. Very, very similar. I mean, it's the exact same parallel as high stress tactical situations. Interrupt, redirect, stop what the dog's thought process is when it's headed in the wrong direction, and then move them mentally and physically into a new direction. Give them something new to look at. Now, after our interrupt and redirect training with our pet owners, the very next thing that I tell them about is a full reset. Full reset means you are engaged in some type of obedience-based behavior modification, and your dog leaves just ahead of you giving them that release command. If you go back and you look at getting the out and understanding the out and how to get it, that video, or some of my e-collar part 1 and 2 training, e-collars past, present, and future. If you look at that one, you're going to hear parts of this explanation. But whenever you're talking something simple, food manners, if I make a pan of food and I go in a very formulaic pattern, I've got my dog on place or in a down stay, and I take the pan of food and it touches the floor and I say break, touches the floor and I say break, and the dog is allowed to release from the down stay or from the place when I say break. In a very short amount of time, just me placing the pan of food on the floor is going to amount to break. Whether I say it or not, when the food touches the floor, if everything is A to B to C in that very short amount of time, pan comes down, touches the floor, I say break, and the dog is allowed to leave. In short order, that pan touching the floor means break, and the dog is going to come. Shortly after that, and this is what I term to my pet owners as a degradation cycle. So we've got our trained behavior up here. It's doing what we, Bones. It's, if you watch Instagram, you know who Bones is. If you look at my account, P2TK9 Instagram. In a minute, buddy. So up here on the hill, once that behavior starts to deteriorate, this is what I call a degradation cycle, and it's just going downhill. So every time that I start to engage in a behavior, if the dog sees all of these steps in the routine coming into place, they are going to view that as the go word. They're going to see the green light and they're going to go for it. This is your degradation cycle, and when you're on that degradation cycle sliding down this hill, what lives at the bottom of the hill, that's extinction training. At that point, this behavior no longer exists. So let's go back to the example of the food manners. Pan touches the floor, dog goes whether I say break or not. They get away with that for a few reps. Pan is 2 inches from the floor. That's going to be the go sign. 2 feet from the floor, waist high. Eventually, as soon as the scoop turns over and the food hits the pan, they're probably coming for you. And now you're right back where you started, or worse, with your dog having no food manners and being very energetic. I don't want to say aggressive to the food pan, because that means something different when you nuance it out and you talk about a dog that's genuinely food aggressive or one that's just really energetic to the pan. But anyway, that's what's at the bottom of that hill waiting for you is extinction training, where our initial behavior, those food manners, just got worse and worse and worse. How do we avoid that? And you're going to, if you look at any of my videos on the e-collar training, the out, understanding the out and how to get it, I go into that when we talk about the routine of a control sequence, sending your dog on the bite, stopping them before the bite, getting the down, getting the recall coming away from the decoy to coming back into a downstay. The downstay eventually gets further and further from the handler. The downstay deteriorates. You're on that degradation cycle going down the hill. It goes from going to the down and then being released by the handler to just a touch and go to eventually just making a short loop back toward you and never even bending at the elbows, just turning around and going right back and hitting the decoy. And that is your degradation cycle going down, 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 hitting extinction training at the bottom of that hill. To avoid that, we're going to do full resets. So when you are in an interrupt and redirect cycle, and now you are seeing this dog breaking, what I'm teaching the pet owners that I work with, even if our go word, our release from obedience is break, even if you had, even if it was on your lip, you're starting with the B and you're forming your word. If that dog leaves before you get it out of your mouth, we're going to call them back. We're going to put them back on place, back in the sit stay, the down stay, whatever we were doing prior to giving them the command. If we didn't get it out, we didn't say it. They went early. They went on their own accord. They saw things lining up where they think, okay, this is my turn. It's the green light and I'm going to go. Now we go back into that full reset. Depending on your surrounding circumstances, are you doing a full reset in a parking lot, a crowded venue? Is it at home? Are you in a hurry? Are you late for work or something like that? The full reset can even just be we turn around and go back to the place cot before giving them the pan of the food. And I get the pan of food on the floor, holding them in that sit stay or down stay on the place cot. Even if it's a 2 Mississippi, just 2 more seconds. If I get the break out and then the dog comes, it's still us reinforcing that power dynamic of you don't get to leave until I let you leave. And if you leave early, I am going to stop you and we're going to turn around. We're going to take a few seconds, reinstitute that impulse control, hold you there, and then release you again. When I talk about pet owners that allow their dogs on the bed, on the furniture with them, you can go back and reference things every pet owner or every dog owner should know, part 1. This is all part of that full reset. If you're talking about sharing the couch or your bed with your dog, they need to be in a sit stay, down stay, or on place until you get up there and you get situated, and you hold them there until you call and invite them. We've got to keep that power paradigm in proper alignment, that this is all your area and that they are not allowed to partake in it with you until you invite them up here, and then you designate where they're going to be. I don't want anyone, pet owners or working dog owners, racing their dog to the couch. I hear people who tell me, my dog gets in the bed and then I'm trying to get in there and I'm hanging on the edge of the mattress. That's all bullcrap. Do not allow your dog to take ownership of the environment and then leave you the scraps in order to try to make yourself comfortable. You are the owner. You are the pack leader. You're the alpha. You're in charge. They are the subordinate. And I am going to share my environment and all of my nice things with you, but it's got to keep that power balance in the proper alignment. So moving on from there, and oh, by the way, a little sidebar. Whenever I interview anyone that I'm going to take their dog on for training, when I'm talking to them, I always get a kick out of asking them, do you let your dog on the furniture? Do you let your dog on the bed? And there's this big moment where it's almost an FBI interrogation. I kind of see them start looking left and right. If it's a couple, they're looking at each other. I don't know what to say. This guy's a professional trainer. Here I go. What answer? What's the right answer? It's not a trick question. and I always let them off the hook after they give me the answer. But I do get a kick out of watching people squirm because they don't know what the right answer is. Should I be letting my dog on the furniture at home? Should I be letting them on the bed? And after the fact, I tell them, I said, look, I let my dogs on the furniture and on the bed. This is in no way in judgment of what you do at your house. I just want to know so I don't wall off behaviors that you want or allow behaviors that you don't want during their time with me. So I want to set them up mentally and in their training and in their behavior modification so that the expectations when they leave me and come back to you are still in line with how you want to live with your dog. I don't want to change anything that you're doing. I want to make how you want to live achievable with your dog and a much more pleasurable experience than what you may be currently experiencing. But every single time I do one of those, I just get a huge kick out of watching people squirm. I don't know. Call me simple joys in life, but it is what it is. So with that being said, we've got interrupt, redirect, full reset. One of the things that it's really started to dawn on me with pet owners is how many concessions and behavior modifications they will make on their end in their life, trying to live with their dog and enjoy their time together. So this occurred to me, and I started incorporating it into my turnovers when I talk to pet owners, when they tell me everything they try to do in order to deal with their dog's undesirable behaviors and make their life a little bit more manageable. And I tell them, wait a minute. When we were taking dogs on deployment in the GWAT, or when you have a working dog, especially on deployments outside the United States, you don't have ideal conditions anywhere you go. You're never as comfortable as you are at home. There are never as many potential assets and resources that you can engage with when you are abroad with a working dog, and you have to be wherever you are assigned or sent or located, wherever it is you have to work from or operate from. This is the environment, and now the dog must plug in, and you must figure out a way to make the dog conform and engage in behavior modification in this very austere location. So why is it when we're at home and we're thinking of this in terms of pets, do we make every excuse, every consideration, every kind of accommodation possible to try to work around our dog's behavior and change our lives and our daily routine in order to get along with our pet? I hate that as a carryover to the pet world, and I think it's unnecessary. So I always encourage my clients, the people that I work with on these cases, quit looking at rearranging your entire life to try to make your dog happy or change behavior or modify their behavior simply through changing what you would normally do. We never do that when you're on deployment. Hey, you're on this up-armored vehicle of any kind. You're on this Humvee. Maybe you've got a crate available. Maybe you don't. Maybe this dog has to ride between your legs with 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 other dudes in this thing. Maybe you got to be on a helicopter, a rotary wing aircraft, and you got 8, 10, 12 other dudes in here. Maybe we can close the doors. Maybe it's in the summertime and even at night, it's hot as hell in here and we're going to ride with the doors open. These are all circumstances that no matter what your dog's proclivities or choices might be, this dog is going to have to conform to what the situation is at hand. We're not going to try to, okay, guys, when the doors are open, it really keys my dog up. And so on the aircraft infield to this target, we need to ride with the doors closed. Hey, guy, it's 100 degrees at night with the sun down. It's not cooled off yet. We're not riding 30, 45 minutes in this rotary wing aircraft with the doors shut. I got news for you. We're riding with the doors open. You need to control your dog. Get him where he can ride in here with all of us with the doors open, or you're not coming next time. It's pretty much as simple as that. Or hey, maybe we need to look at firing your dog because your dog can't handle the gig, and now you're not going to be with us on this rotation, or on these missions, or even part of the canine unit going forward. So we don't view these obstacles on the working side as a showstopper. We have to find out a way to make these dogs conform to the requirements of the environment and or the mission. And we need to push that more into the pet world. People will have a healthier, happier life with their dogs going forward if we modify the behavior of the dog to conform to our lifestyle. Dogs here recently that I've dealt with can't ride in a vehicle without jumping in to the front seat or jumping into the owner's lap or going down into the floorboard near the pedals, the brake and the gas. With that being said, why can't they? This is just a matter of impulse control. If another phrase that I'm using lately with these pet owners, I'm calling them impediments to performance. When we're talking about maintaining obedience and impulse control, I am going to insist everything I do is fair, ethical, and clearly communicated with the dog. What am I going to do? Whether I'm doing working dog training, soft MPC, I am going to eliminate impediments to performance up front. What are those impediments to performance? Has my dog had enough to eat, and are we doing behavior modification in an environment where being super hungry or not eating yet is going to be an impediment to performance? Is being too satiated and having too much food an impediment to performance? Making sure that dog has had adequate bathroom breaks. It's hard to work on impulse control, and you can't have ethical corrections when you're working impulse control or other obedience elements if your dog's busting to pee or has to go take a big dump. That's an impediment to performance. Or is your dog thoroughly walked, had a break time? Has it gone to the bathroom? Has your dog had enough just general exercise and run around time to get the zoomies out? During soft MPC, I was running with my dogs, and other handlers were too, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, go knock out 3, 5, 6 miles. This was just to take off enough energy and get enough of that kennel confinement out of your dog to allow them to be open to these high stress activities, to the impulse control, to the rigors of training, because an impediment to performance is going to be all of that pent up energy. I'm too geeked. I'm too jazzed. I can't keep my mind focused on what we're doing. I'm ready to chase any squirrel or shiny object that's in my peripheral vision. I'm ready to go. We can't have that. So take out all of those impediments to performance. It doesn't matter if it's a working dog or a pet. Know what your training matrix looks like. Either don't feed them or feed them and have them satiated, depending on what kind of behavior modification that you're using. Are you trying to use food or treats to lay foundational behaviors? If they're a dog that can work for their own kibble, and I work with a lot of them, which is great. If a dog is really driven for its own kibble, its own food, I don't even have to incorporate treats or any kind of yum-yums into the day. I can just make them work for their normal ration of food. That is the easiest inroad and one of the best behavior modification tools that we have available. I don't even have to cut up the beef liver treats or try to find deli ham and cut it up or anything like that. They're willing to just work for their own food. So if I'm working with that as a foundational basis, then I don't want to go ahead and feed them a meal prior to the training. If I'm working in an environment that has food available, or impulse control around food or resources is important, I'm not going to try to take a dog, whether it's a working dog or a pet, out to a public environment where food scraps and trash may be available and try to work impulse control or some kind of detection or patrol routine when this dog has had no food whatsoever for the day yet, or maybe we've even withheld food for training purposes for that day or for the morning. You can't go take a dog into an environment when people say, well, I go to the park or I go to food courts or outside malls where dogs are welcome and they want to eat every single piece of food trash or discarded item off the ground. They fight me for garbage cans. Okay, well, if we know that that's the problem, I'm not going to take a dog into that arena who hasn't had food already, where they go into it. If they're already looking for food trash and trying to forage and scavenge, I can't take a hungry dog into that location and then have ethical, fair, and understandable behavior modification because I have an impediment to performance. I've taken a hungry dog into an environment where these things are readily available and then challenge him not to try to go ahead and acquire these things. So, with all of that said, I'm going to take all of my impediments to performance off the table. And now I know the dog has had a break, it's had a meal, it's had runaround time. Now there is nothing unreasonable, unfair, or punitive about me telling you, get on that place cot and hold that for 10, 15 minutes. My buddy Todd Smith, who I worked with at the Department of State for a while, look him up, Trinity Canine Services, if you're in the Mid-Atlantic region. He gets some insane sit, stay, down, stay, stay on place times, dogs in 20, 30-minute increments where he can just put them there and hold them. And even though he and I haven't discussed it, I guarantee you he has done the exact same thing I'm describing here. He goes and he takes all the impediments to performance off the table. So now when he puts that dog up there, I know good and well you don't need food. I know good and well you don't need water. I know you've had a break. I saw you pee. I saw you take a poop. I know you've had runaround time, and you should be mentally and physically ready to sit up here and sustain 20, 30 minutes on place. Should be no problem for you whatsoever. And from there, then we can add those external distractors, other things that the dog may be struggling with, and work on that impulse control while they're on that sit, stay, down, stay, or holding that place behavior. So, with all that being said, we don't have this huge difference between the working dog world and the pet world. In fact, there are a lot more crossovers than you think. It's kind of a Venn diagram more than it's this bar graph where all of these different disciplines are separate. So I hope this helps you out. I may follow up on this with an additional video. I know it's been a long time since I put my last one in, but this was topical for me, and I've had it on my mind for the last few days, and I wanted to share that with you. Additionally, one more little side note before I take off. When you're talking about an e-collar, and part of this was in e-collars past, present, if you are doing any kind of training, we want to carry the e-collar modification out with the lowest level that the dog can absolutely accommodate in order to keep their mind free, their eyes and ears open to receive new information, and allow them to comply. If your dog has been given an obedience task and you have given collar stimulation to enforce that task, and the dog stops and is just standing there kicking at the collar, that in itself is a form of disobedience. I am going to engage in a different behavior other than what you just told me to do to try to avoid the behavior you want me to engage in. Slowly, incrementally, just keep reiterating your obedience task and raise your level and just keep bumping that button and give them input. I guarantee you, you don't have to burn them down. You're not going to have to go all the way to 100. With Dogtra or e-collar technologies, if you're on a 0 to 100 or a 0 to 127, if you're operating in the teens, I guarantee you if that dog is itching at the collar and you've told them to do something and they're standing there scratching, if you go 15, 17, 19, 20, you're continually reiterating and you're just bumping the whole time and you turn it up. If you're at 15, I would be surprised if you have to go past 25 before that dog's going to put its foot down and go do what you told it to do, because it knows the task and it knows how to control the stimulation. It's going to avoid the stimulation and go and make good on the task. It will stand there and kick that collar as long as you will let it. And too many, also working dog handlers and pet owners will allow this behavior to take place and just go, oh, well, as soon as he stops kicking at the collar, then I'll go ahead and reiterate the task. No, this in itself is a way to defeat the obedience task. level up, just keep going continually up, reiterate, bump, bump, bump. They will put their foot down, and I have demonstrated that dozens and dozens of times in the last few weeks to people who didn't think that that was possible. Just keep coming up, get on that hill, keep climbing. They're going to put their foot down and go get on place, guarantee you. So thank you for watching. Please check out p2tk9.com. All of those products are made by me, my designs, manufactured with these two creative hands right here in the state of Tennessee, competitively priced. Check me out. Subscribe to this channel, share it with friends. Thank you for watching.